Well, hey, welcome to Niver Niver Land. Maybe you didn't expect me to be in your ears with a podcast, and I can tell you that honestly, I didn't expect to be in your ears with this podcast either. But here I am, and damn it, I'm going to try to make it something worth listening to. This is a little side creative project for me, and it's produced by a friend of mine, Matthew Gundrum at Gleam Tower Media. Really happy that I can share my experiences, or the fact that I'm gaining these experiences through life with you today in the moment. And that's kind of what Niver Niver Land is about. And sure, maybe it's not an organized thought all the time, but I am trying to bring you all to the table with me here and have a discussion about something. So there's Niver Niver Land. And episode 1, well, it went great. I had a chance to sit down with a friend of mine, Stephanie March. Not only is she a friend, but she's badass at her job, which is something she's passionate about, and you can feel it all the time. Senior food and dining editor from MSP Communications, and great all-around person and cook, Stephanie March. Welcome to Niver Niver Land. Hope you enjoyed the show. Let me start here. So episode 1 of Niver Niver Land, here in the beautiful downtown of St. Paul, but it's called Lower Town. Actually, the sun's rising over the buildings. The neighbors were taking their dogs out for their walks and their morning constitutions. This is a beautiful day in St. Paul, Minnesota. And with me today is a friend and also a peer, as I could maybe call her a peer. We have with us today on Niver Niver Land, Stephanie March, senior food and dining editor at MSP Communications.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And you're also kind enough to every once in a while invite me onto your show, 107.1 Weekly Dish, The Stephanies. Hello, good morning.
Good morning. Thank you for having me. Am I episode 1?
You're episode 1.
That's pretty prestigious.
Yes. Well, I'm kind of honored that you're here, to be honest. I didn't know. Somebody asked you to be in their podcast. You know, we're friends or whatever, but yeah. I'm not sure. You have a professional career that could be perhaps affected by things that we say today.
There is a thing
about... You didn't sign a waiver. Do you agree to allow us
I did not sign a waiver. Let's hope this doesn't come back to haunt me in 10 years where someone's drilling back through things I've said and said, oh.
Well, yeah. I mean, we're all trying to avoid this, yes. I think. Mm-hmm. So, hey, You've been in this restaurant industry for years. Yeah. Obviously, you've ascended. You are a badass. You are at the top of the heap here in Minneapolis. Do you feel that way about yourself?
I have a hard time playing that card. You know what I mean? I think I've worked my butt off and I've earned my space, but I have a hard time seeing it like that.
I do too. Like people say, hey, Niver, you're doing so well. You're successful. And I'm like, dude, I'm really not. You see me, if I was successful, I probably wouldn't be doing this.
Right. And I think I left my house without my phone today. Like that, I don't have it all together. You know, it's like there's nobody who's ever like, and that I guess that means to me like you're smooth sharking through everything, and everything's easy to when you're top of the heap. That's how I feel about that. I don't have that.
But that's how I see you. How you work a room, or that's how I see you. In your laugh, you're very at ease and casual about this. But obviously, you know, there's years and years of experience behind some of this. Like you've been in the public eye for a long time.
30 years. I turned 50 this year, so that should tell you that like I've been in this since like my 20s. Like everybody, you know,
Happy birthday.
Yeah. But it's like that thing where you realize that you've been doing this kind of stuff for so long. But I've, you know, as far as like the talking part of this is really easy for me and always has been. So that's a natural
and that's
thing.
good. You know, obviously there's a lot of words we need to put into, you know, the articles that people read and keep this kind of, you know, idea of the industry going. And you all had to like switch just like everybody else did through COVID, and food writing changed. And what could you do? You know, what kind of reviews are you going to do for a struggling restaurant, or what do we talk about now? You know, and that must have been an interesting time and probably a lot of content, right? Like kind of easy to talk about stuff a lot, or was it that it was like not easy stuff, so you're kind of glossing over?
No, I think, well, for me, I don't know how to gloss over really. And that's the thing is I sort of switched the gears and started talking more about the industry instead of, talking to the industry necessarily, and try to speak a little bit for the industry to talk to other people. And I'm always trying to balance that, the eaters and the industry, right? You have the readers, and I advocate for them for sure. And that's why we say, this place is good, it's worth your money, or this place isn't so great, it's not worth your money, not worth your time. Or, and then I advocate for the industry by saying, like, these are, trying to shine lights on new things so that people can find them. And so the discovery piece of this for both sides is always this little balance we do. But then during the pandemic, it was like, I just had to like let everybody know what was going on this side of things, because I think for the first time it was more delicate and hard to express. It wasn't just plates and actions and pretty lights and stuff like that. So that was the thing that I really tried to do. And maybe because, in my personal life, I'd gone through things that I was starting to be more vulnerable anyway to things. I was sort of able to sort of translate that vulnerability, I think, and try to give both sides. That was what I was really proud of the writing. I will say that as much as I don't think I'm on top of the heap, I do think that the writing that I did during the pandemic for me was satisfying, and it was I liked it because it was real. Yeah. Because I mean, when we look at, no offense to like bloggers and influencers and all the rest of that stuff, that can get very surfacey, and anybody can take a pretty picture, right? But to be able to know and understand and then put to words those feelings and that situation, which we had never seen, that was almost a privilege of mine, I think. So cool. I sort of feel like I was supposed to be there for that.
Oh God, thank God you were here for that. And you're always here for me too. And I get that feeling like I need to say something, or I have an opinion, or I want to do something. I call or text you. And
we do chat. And I honestly, that the relationships, I know that it's not traditional. The way that I run my role is not traditional. I mean, Pete Wells does not probably take texts from his chef friends he's known for 20 years and talk about things. And I'm not Pete Wells, let's be clear. But
he's not you.
He's not me.
He's not you.
But there's that thing where I think that this is a different time and we're all in a different space. And I think it's actually more about the personhood of it all. And there's this funny thing in copy editing and writing, that the behind the scenes weird little quirks, you're supposed to refer to a restaurant as an it. Like when you're writing things like St. Dinette, is open, it serves brunch. And I can't say that. Like for 30 years, I've been typoing they, because for me, it's not like I'm gendering the restaurant, but what I'm saying is that it's made of people. And that's what it's always been for me. It's not an it, it's a they. And my copy editor is continually, she finally said last year, let's just change it. It's going to be they. So it is.
It's cool. I do think that through this last set of months, year plus now, right, that what happened did actually humanize the business.
Yes.
People, it tore the shroud off, and people before this were so free with feedback and yelping, and it was this and this and this opinion, and then some sort of tragedy happens.
Yeah.
And then it's like, oh, you get to see these folks again and what they're actually struggling with. It also bared out a lot of the problems in our industry, and it made them even more difficult and having to face the things that we had to face.
Yeah.
And that vulnerability, it seems like you went through this with us exactly the same way, because it was your livelihood as well, right?
Yeah. But I also think when you're saying that, it makes a lot of sense, because I think that's what happened to people, just in general, the way that they supported you guys when in the beginning they were like, we can't lose our restaurants. In a moment, it was like they were losing so many other things. They were losing their freedoms, or their, in terms of like being able to move around the city and do what they wanted to do. And then all of a sudden they realized like they couldn't lose this. And that was like the moment I think they realized that you guys were important to them on a personal level. And we've always seen it. Where do you go for your wedding? Where do you go to celebrate an anniversary? You don't go to a movie. You go to a restaurant, Yeah. And I think that those and like I always say that nobody mourns when a dry cleaner closes, but we have these long, farewells to these restaurants when they close. And that's because they really hit us in that spot. Yeah. And I think they took this almost to make people stop and realize their whole lives. They're remeasuring their whole lives and how important restaurants are in that space.
Yeah.
That was, I think, finally. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Finally.
A lot of readjustment.
Yeah.
And I think you still have to step on that feeling like change is constant, right? And that this won't actually stop. You know, our industry has always kind of been trying to survive. It's never really
True.
like...
You told me that. I remember when you said that. When you're like, I would like to not have it 3 months and then thinking I'm going to close.
Yeah,
and,
you don't know.
Yeah.
You really don't know. And there's the edge, right? Mm-hmm. But, you know, if we can somehow harness what we've learned and take some of this forward and not forget, because we really seem to have a short memory, me for different reasons than others.
Yes.
But our memories are really short.
Yeah, I agree.
And, this isn't over.
No.
Like
well, the change isn't complete or anything.
No. And I said to a friend of mine just recently, like, I still feel a little, we're going to Mexico on Wednesday, and I still feel a little like, what will people think? Should I take pictures of it? What will people think if they see me overseas or something like that during this pandemic? And and it's kind of like, all right, I know it's still going, but also we have to start getting some pieces of life back.
Yeah.
We have to start finding joy, because I think while we were down here being vulnerable, you see the flaws a little more.
Yeah, I agree.
And you see flaws in, maybe how you're doing your business, or flaws in how you react when people tell you how you're doing your business.
Yeah. No, but I think, and maybe, I don't know about you if you felt like this in 2019, it felt like we were, and of course hindsight, right? But it felt like we were at the crest of something anyway. And I know it was the labor issues for you guys, but it just felt like, I don't know, there was something, I don't want to say like it felt like something was coming, but can I tell you a really spooky story?
Please.
That, so a bunch of girls and we have a little, sort of like entrepreneurial brainstorming clutch and called the Lady Brainers. And we meet every January, and we have the psychic come, and she kind of gives us a reading, and we kind of talk about setting intentionality for the year. What do you want to do? What does she see? What do we agree with? What do we don't agree with? I literally said at the beginning of 2020, I was like, something is coming. And I was just kind of like, I picked out a picture. You pick out a random picture of a bird's nest with eggs in it. And I was like, because something's coming. Like, we don't know what it is, but something's coming. And I think I did that. So I'm sorry, everybody. I think I did that.
You were in part responsible for COVID. Damn it.
Pretty much.
Steph.
I know. That was January 2020.
Well, this year's just, it's passing rapidly and slowly. And I was thinking back to, like old restaurants. Rick Nelson said something about, these restaurants that this romantic idea of restaurants. And I was thinking about, gosh, how do we push forward? And, we're treating our employees different. I'm seeing everybody with even more empathy and more kind of like compromise and tolerance. I'm like trying to like understand what people are going through more when they come eat, and also when they work with us. But I've been a little bit discouraged kind of by the discourse that we seem to be losing. This idea that while we are vulnerable and raw, we still need to be able to communicate with each other, even in a feedback form. Yeah. And we have to figure out the right way to say it. And we also have to maybe put our sensitivities down a little bit more and consider that too. Because we got to kind of callous over some of this so that we can get back to business and consider our futures. I'm hoping that people can kind of stay, supportive in the right ways.
Yeah. Yeah. I hope they can synthesize it all. But while you're saying you're right, like by moving forward, and taking all of that without losing the empathy. Because that's the hardest thing right now overall nationally for everything right now. It's hard to like have an opinion that is differing from someone else and then have them just be able to understand and to seek to understand. That's the scariest part for me. Yeah. And so that the impact of that, when you filter it down, it does. Like if you were saying, I'm just arguing with this person on Twitter, a national, this is an ideal thing. And it starts to, trickle down into how you treat everybody. And let's be clear, who gets treated the most honestly? Probably it's the service industry. And that's not just even servers, but I hear it from, cab drivers and retail and everybody else who connect with me and say, I wish you'd do this for my industry. And I'm like, well, it all kind of is. Like, it's all really all of us. And it's whoever's, sort of giving service. And it's weird because there's a couple things that I'm a little worried about with, like, what you're saying is the empathy piece of this. The other side of it is I'm worried about the way that they're casting the service industry as, like, I get the workers' rise thing. I'm really trying to understand unions and how they're benefiting people and if it's good for them and if it's good for everybody. I'm trying to understand that because our generation of, like, way back when we were in our 20s and it was, like, not very great to be a part of a union. So, and on that scope of it, I'm just trying to understand that why people seem to want to, like, make service, like, shameful in a weird way. Like, oh my God, they had to be a server. And I'm like, but that's a lot of us. That was like, that's a gift. And, like, that's, like, service is humility. And, like, that's a thing that I think our country kind of needs is learning how to, like, serve another person. Absolutely. And not have it make you any less of a person.
Take the back seat. Yeah. For a minute.
For just a minute. Mm-hmm. And there's this weird thing where they're, like, demonizing it in order to kind of get in and kind of get the ire up. I think
we're spoiled. I think we get what we want.
Yeah.
I think there's abundant choice.
Yeah.
So if you don't like it, you can go somewhere else.
Right.
I think it's a kind of a problem, to be honest with you. I think, though, that we lost maybe some friends during this time that were ready to go.
They were ready
it's
to go.
Okay, it's
good.
all right. So, like, you can kind of feel caught up in this, and I even do. Like, what do I do now?
Right.
I feel caught up in this, but a lot of people made good decisions to kind of step out because there is a certain humility that you must have.
You have to have it
to proceed doing what we do.
And this is, again, like, this is where I'd like to know that, like, I like the fact that all my kids have been in the restaurant industry in some way, shape, or form, and they have literally all come out with a better perspective of life and other people. They all know how to treat other people in restaurants, obviously, better than, like, their peers. I have this giant baby who's, like, makes sure everybody tips. He's like, what are you tipping? What are you leaving at his table?
He's just so adorable,
He's good.
by the way.
And then, but they're all, the idea that you see other people as just as valuable, like, if they go on, my son who is he's like an insurance bigwig or whatever in Chicago, he's like, he has a team of people, but he doesn't see them as, like, he's the overlord and they're, like, his underlings. It's that same, he knows how to treat people, like, with the service.
Yes.
And so that's what I'm worried about us losing. I'm worried about when we go down to, we lose our sight of what that relationship is, how it can be in essence. And I know it's been abused by a lot of customers, a lot of eaters, abuse it by thinking it is servant. And I don't think that's it. I don't think it's like you don't get to have whatever you want. You don't get to order that person. You don't get to dehumanize that person. But there can be a beautiful thing. And I think you teach it so well. You and your staff, you guys have a beautiful flow and you understand. You toe the line when it needs to be towed because too many people don't either. But yet you also allow for that sort of flow. That's all I can say is that's the best way.
Thank you. And it's really hard to maintain.
It is.
There's a standard. Mm-hmm. So you never want to drop below that standard. You always want to be punching above it.
Yep.
And then with that standard, though, that's not necessarily an imposition. It's just a little bit of a directive. So that's what you do. Who you are on top of that standard is up to you.
Right.
And we don't try to make people into other things. We definitely try to be real. The Lake Street property has been interesting because there was Maven there and that closed and there was a bunch of stuff before that and those things closed. Now here's Trattoria Mucci. We had 6 months and it was rocking and rolling, right? And then boom, we're closed again. And I don't even know that we knew who we were.
Yeah.
Right? And we were kind of stopped dead in our tracks. We have our own personal identity. We know what Mucci's is sort of. Uptown's a different Mucci's. And so as we started to reopen, I'm like, we need to really exert who we are here.
Yeah.
I don't want Uptown to run me over.
Right.
You know what? Kill these people with actual kindness. Bring them in. Be loud with them. Come on, sit over here. How you doing? What's up? And folks from Minneapolis don't necessarily, they're not like, they don't like getting roughed up at the restaurant. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's basically, we want our table.
Yeah, we'll just be over here doing our thing.
It's cool. Like, I totally get it. But, when I'm overly nice or something like that or whatever, people are like, oh my gosh. But you really do have to exert who you are, right? And you can't let people run over you.
Yeah.
I love the East Coast in a way because even shy people on the East Coast, the quiet kills sometimes, the looks or whatever. And I think that's really helpful to feel that way. I think feedback is ultimately one of the things we need to get better at receiving.
Yeah, I agree.
Because we're so sensitive. We're so kind of like caught up in, having things exactly our way, and accepting feedback is also accepting another viewpoint. That it may not be perfect, but feedback is all we have to like consistently enforce the standard.
Yeah.
And I just, with the sensitivity and the rawness that we all have right now, I'm just feeling like I'm hopeful we can open our minds to this idea of what feedback is.
Yeah.
It started a long time ago. Food writing started a long time ago. There's been writers about food for a long time and critiques and all this. And I actually really miss like a real honest to goodness ranking. Like, give it to me.
Yeah.
Like, I want to know where I sit. And you know what? I don't know who could write that article anymore.
I don't know if we could. Honestly, I don't know how we would. That's one of those things we talk about. I'm currently writing the MSP 50, where we bring 50, and that's in a weird way. That's the only way we feel like we can do it is, there's clearly more than 50 great restaurants in this town.
Absolutely.
And so by doing 50, we put you all in a little clutch, and then that's your ranking as you're in the top, right?
I have to tell you, every time I'm in the 50, I love that. I do. I got some stuff hanging on the wall over here. It is something, that is a little piece of feedback that I can get. I hope that I earn.
Right.
But that helps me along my way. I used to read these food writers like, oh, snap, they just buried that restaurant. Right. And I was like, wow, that was harsh. And I'm thinking to myself, gosh, I'm glad that wasn't me. And now I think sometimes it's like, you know what? Go ahead.
Yeah.
I really want you to take a shot at me because I think I'm in a place where I can now take the feedback and use it to progress. And I think I might go through the stages of just like disbelief, like, oh, no. And then I might, or surprise first. Surprise,
right.
like really? I did.
Right.
How could they possibly hate that? They're ridiculous.
Yes.
And then it's disbelief, like, no, really? Like,
yeah.
And then I probably get pissed. I'm probably like, oh, you know what? They suck too.
They suck, right?
Too. I never liked their writing.
They don't get it. They don't
get it. Where have you eaten?
Yeah, where? Yeah.
Have you been out of the city ever? And then I'm like, ultimately, I'm like, oh shit, they're right.
Yeah.
Or pieces of it are right.
Right.
And I can glean a little bit of help from even just pieces.
Yeah. There are pieces and there are things that I've heard restaurateurs say. It is that thing where it's like, either you. So what happens to me is like somebody will bring me a dish or whatever and they'll be like, well, what did you really think? And I'm like, oh, okay. Like I didn't order the dish. They brought me the dish. So I always feel like, well, if you're bringing me something and I didn't pick it, then I'm going to open up and let you know the real thing. And I'm like, oh, well, I really, I thought it was good. It just, maybe it was a little bit, too acidic for me or something like that.
So and you start with like, hey, it was good, but. Yeah. Is that Minnesotan?
Yeah. Oh, it's what?
I think it's
sort
nice,
of almost
though.
Corporate too. You started on the positive. Mm-hmm. Look, I really like how hard you're working, but you could do better in here. And then you finish with the whole, but I see a lot of promise,
There's a format to feedback.
Yeah. And sometimes you do that and then they look at you and they stop and they stare and they're like, oh, you didn't want my actual honest opinion. Okay. It's great. It's totally great. And so then you just go and you think there's times where it's hard to tell. And then I think there's times when I've gotten calls from someone, from a chef and saying, we got this like kind of this slam comment, but there's some truth here to this. And they're like, I think they're kind of off their rocker, but at the same time, there's a couple things in there that I think are probably right. They're not wrong.
Right. And
I said, okay, well, I said I could. And then sometimes they call to like fact check it against me. Like, do you think that like our tables are too tightly together? And I'm like, I could see where someone would think that. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you can measure 6 feet, right? You know how to do that, right? I mean, like you're telling me you don't know how to measure 6 feet.
It's a lot easier now, right?
They're doing the 1 foot in front of the other thing, and kind of like.
If my butt is gracing another table when I'm trying to squeeze in, that's too close.
Yeah. But sorry for the when you said something about your butt. That's not the timing. There wasn't very good. But I miss that connection, and and Mucci's St. Paul is so tight. and you are kind of like scooching down, and it's not necessarily the most comfortable experience. This is what we got for you folks.
Yeah.
This is it. This is our place as we would have you have it.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. We hope you enjoy it as it sits.
I know.
But I there's a couple classic, Niver isms or stories, things that I say when people suggest things to me. And it's not like, I am kind of snarky and I am kind of like, that East Coast vibe or whatever. But, some people, certain times, they catch you in a moment.
Yeah.
Like there was a guy here at St. Dinette. St. Dinette is our sponsor today, by the way. I was sitting at the bar with a friend of mine and we're eating. And then the folks next to my friend understood after a while that I was the owner of the restaurant. Mm-hmm. And, we'd all had a couple cocktails. It was the end of the night. It was a beautiful night. God, everything was so good. And then what happens is like, dude next to my friend, like leans over and he looks at me and he goes, "You know what you should do?" And I'm like, here we go. Here we fucking go. If you say to me, "You know what you should do," I am probably, if I get the hair shaved off the back of my neck, but it like would it would be standing up, right? And then he continued to tell me what I should do.
Yeah, all the things.
And then I stopped and I leaned back over and I go, "Is that how you do it at your restaurant?"
The armchair restaurant owner.
Well, if you're going to say something, you may be right, you're telling me what to do, and I get that you might have an opinion. If I was maybe standing in front of you, serving you at the time, I might be more accepting of the advice instead of me sitting at the bar. But always you have to be kind of open to this stuff.
You do.
And we had a laugh, right? Because if you can say almost anything if you say it the right way. Right. And I'm not sure that we're considering how to say things like we should.
No, I would agree with that completely.
So it's all right to have an opinion, right? It's all right to give feedback.
Yeah.
But look at your words when you're
doing it. Tone and intent also.
Tone is like the thing.
Yeah. Don't you think? I think that that's like in person and in writing too. Quite honestly, there's some, people who I think like, I stop reading, you know what I mean? Because I'm like, I'm already done.
Yeah, it's like you're purveying in tone. And then if the tone is right, then you can actually take in the words and enjoy them. But if the tone's wrong, you're like, oh God, am I even going to finish this?
Yeah, you're just basically yelling at me or preaching to me, or you're coming from a place of self-importance. And that's the thing that is hardest for me, because I don't see, like I said, like when we talk to Open, it's like I don't see myself as like doling out these pearls of wisdom for you all to like, eat up and then just become better people. It's not that. We're having a conversation. I would way rather have someone email me back. What I can't stand is when people subtweet or they talk about you and they don't include you. And I'm like, if you want to rip on me, let's just do it. Let's just have that conversation. But like, be ready, because I'm going to come back. I'd rather have an actual argument than I would having you. I mean, I guess everybody would, but
Do you have to take your MSP hat off sometimes and put the Stephanie March gloves on?
Yeah, I do it a lot. Actually, I will say that I'm allowed a lot of leeway, as I've been there for like, I think I'm on 13 years now or something like that, 12 years.
Wow.
I know. And so.
Is it okay to admit that you got a lot of leeway?
I do.
Should you be saying that?
I know. Well, I mean, like they trust me. And so that's the good news, is that I have, I don't run my stuff by anybody. I just put it out there. I mean, I'm edited in the print, but online it's just me and my bullhorn. So I just sort of feel like, they're very supportive. They're very much of knowing that I'm an expert in my beat. Like, it's at least I'm not like hey, I've done this for like 6 months and this is what I think, And I kind of have the chops of having been in the industry and outside of the industry and alongside of it and all sorts of things. But I do think you have to, I think that's where it comes from. You have to be ready to back it up, like, and to be able to answer to it.
Yeah.
And I wish that more people would do that.
Yeah. So, restaurant fixture in town, Bob McDonald.
Yeah.
He literally, as he gets older even, and I have so much respect for this man, but as he gets older, like the filter's off even more.
Yes.
And I really, really love that. I can grab on it. This guy has eaten everywhere in the entire world, more restaurants than anybody in the city.
Yeah.
He's written books about it. He sends menus to people all the time.
Yeah.
And he actually like very tactful when he needs to be, but also this guy just tells you what's up.
Yeah.
And it's just kind of cool, how much he knows.
Yeah.
But they come rolling into Trattoria Mucci, and I can feed that man that's been in every place in the world. And if he wants to tell me something about my restaurant that I was like, this was too cheesy, I don't know, whatever dumb complaint, it would be way more intellectual than that. he would freaking tell me.
Yeah.
And I'd want him to.
Yeah. Yeah.
Come on.
I know.
But then other people, but it's only because I know him and I know his experience.
That's what I was going to say.
He's got a depth of knowledge where I can accept it.
Yeah.
I can accept it.
Yeah.
But, even if you don't have this vast, encyclopedia of situations you've been in where you need to give somebody feedback, even if you don't have that, we should still kind of take a moment before we put those vibes out there, right?
Yeah, I do. I think so.
Check
I think you
your
have
vibe.
to, and I think if you're going to put something out there, you've got to be able to, it should be, I don't know. I guess it depends on if we're talking about if you're giving, if your feedback on the table, this was too salty. First of all, I also think that you should send back food, if you don't like it. And that's the thing that I keep trying to get people to understand. Because if they don't, and it's so Minnesotan to not send back your food, to suffer through it, and then to be pissy about it later. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, but they could have fixed it.
Yeah, well,
and then you could have had a good night.
We might have fixed it. I start to tell people now, oh, how's the carbonara? Well, it's cheese and cream. A little bit of pancetta. It's going to lean salty for you.
Yeah. there is that. There is that.
All I need you to do is put it on the spoon.
is a little raw. You're like, Yeah. So.
But and still we I humbly go forth. I was so worried. I'm always so worried about offending somebody.
Right.
We practice inobtrusiveness in a way, and you fall into this neutrality where I don't actually ever say anything. I just think it all, and I'm like, okay, humble, quiet. And the majority, 95% of the people that join us are amazing.
Yeah.
Maybe even higher percentage.
Yeah, maybe.
So I think we're really lucky. But what sticks out is, the hard stuff.
Yeah.
But Steph, I want actual feedback from peers.
You do.
I
from
do.
Peers.
I want it. And I think some of this stuff died out over the years. Some of maybe the French stuff. That sure as shit should have died out.
Yeah.
But we used to go to places and then this is how I was taught. If you go somewhere and you're always enjoying it. Thank you so much. But you owe it to a chef afterwards to give them a private nudge. I can humbly say that I've given chefs a private nudge a couple of times.
Yeah.
And I always felt really bad about it afterwards. But I was
Did you really?
yeah.
How was it received though? Was it?
Well, one time I went to the wrong person and I went to the chef's boss. And, it was Italian food and whatever. And I'm not even picky about it, but it was just actually bad. And I just I thought I should say something.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so my connection at the restaurant was actually the boss, part owner. And then I knew the chef as well. So the part owner, the friend went to the chef and said, well, Niver said that this was pasty and da-da-da-da-da. So the delivery of what I gave
was not.
So the chef's like, fuck you, man.
Yeah, right?
Who are you?
Yeah, and you just went over me.
You're like a GM somewhere. Shut up.
Right.
Who gave you your culinary degree?
Right,
Yeah, I just happen to have eaten a lot. That's all. Sorry for my opinion,
Yeah.
They didn't call it pasta. They call it pasta. Okay, chef? Don't mess with me. I know what I'm talking about.
I know.
Damn it. But, so that was hard. But I think, would you rather somebody not come back because
that's the thing.
It sucked?
Right. I would rather, you want them to tell you, or you want them to give you the chance at least to explain it or to fix it or to sub it out. This is going to be salty because of this and this and this. Maybe you'd enjoy a marinara. Maybe you'd enjoy something else, And I just think that giving someone that opportunity, it's the weird thing is that Minnesotans are embarrassed because part of them thinks that they're getting it wrong. but they're never going to admit that in public. They'll just take it to the, like they're getting it wrong. I should like this. I don't. And then it's going to sit with them and fester. And then they're going to go home and they're going to tell all their friends.
Or write a little ditty about it.
When they're blind. Yeah. When they're behind their safe computer. And that's, I think, unfortunate because that's not real feedback.
Alcohol doesn't help either. I was just kind of like, my eyes went up into my head and I'm like, oh, alcohol doesn't help the situation at all, We were very lucky at a place called the Strip Club and the Town Talk Diner for that matter, because we really put our humor before other things. The idea that the lack of seriousness, though there was some formality in the act of dining, the lack of seriousness was disarming, and not necessarily like immediately to folks, but once you kind of get into, like when you walk into Manny's, there's the bowl there, the big picture of the bowl, and you don't maybe like focus on it immediately, but purposefully the bowl's balls are right there in this big painting of the bowl when you walk into Manny's, and they're already trying to push this idea of masculinity and all this thing is like, okay, we feel it, dude. It's all right.
We got it. The swagger is here.
But also there's a formality there and a kindness and a humor that's always kind of been prevalent with the steakhouse concept, but Manny's in particular.
Yeah.
And I kind of cut my teeth watching them serve,
Yeah.
And they give you the steaming claws and the lemon. There's like beautiful parts of the service, but it's also like, all right, you're getting the fucking filet.
Yeah.
Cool. You're going to get the fucking, there's also this kind of
it's a swagger.
Yeah.
And that is literally the only place in town that can achieve that.
Can get away with it.
Yeah.
I agree. And I think it's an art. I also think that it is, disarming to some. And then you look at the prices and it's like, wow, I'm paying to get treated like shit. And on purpose. And it's really, really awesome.
Right.
It's lovely.
I'm happy for it. Thank you. I know. But it's true. There's and the other places that, try to do that sort of style, the canned, whatever, Dick's Last Resort or whatever, it's not the same.
No.
But it's funny because they still take care of you.
Yeah.
Like above all else, you are taken care of.
Yeah, no doubt about it.
Mm-hmm.
No doubt about it. And I like that part, the part where you take the humility and you bring it tableside, but it can still have, some pride to it. It can still be like, or this is mama's kitchen in a way. Like those are the things I think that restaurants can give you. Like, and maybe they're hidden a little bit, but maybe look for the essence of the restaurant a little bit more. I walk into a new place like Estelle and I eat there and I know that crew.
Yeah.
And they have like 5 of the best cooks, and you know what, they're all kind of badasses and they're all kind of like freaky deaky and making fun of each other, and Jet's over there and Nattel's over there, but they just exude this confidence about their cuisine. They put it on the plate. The dishes are really, really lovely, and that's a place where I get a feeling of service. I get a feeling of care.
Well, it's a weird thing because there's a lot of, I think, restaurants that try to put forth a concept, right? And they don't really know. And you can't really know, I think, until you get in, until it's rolling, until you've got your people in place. You can have an idea of who you want to be, but you don't really know who you are until you get going. And that's been the hardest part about judging a place too. Or those people who go into a place the first day and then write a review about it, to me is that's the idea that they say, well, they're open, they're charging money, they should be able to handle your criticism. But when you went to your office job and you were hired the first day and someone said, where's the conference room? And you didn't know, should you be reviewed and publicly? And should that review live online forever as this judgment of you on your first day of work? But you still got paid.
1 star.
1 star.
It was too busy. We couldn't get in.
You couldn't use your copier, your photocopier. You didn't know how? 1 star.
1 star.
Yeah.
1 star.
That's it. So I sort of feel like knowing that everybody has, there's a churn to it, and there is sort of it's a birthing in a way, and a lot of people don't understand that. And even they don't understand that, because some people put their restaurant, they're like, this is who we are, and you're ready. And like for me, I get a lot of like the preamble, so my expectations are kind of in this one place, and then I walk in, I'm like, you're doing this, okay. I can tell you 3 places, maybe I shouldn't name them, but that I walked in and I was sort of surprised, Do
what you want.
I know.
Name who you want.
Right, name who you want.
That's fine by me.
I know. No, you know what?
But what about after 5 years then? Okay, so we're all like, we love the shiny coin. That's what we're going to pick up off the ground, right? And you kind of, like you say, you have to set the stage for that. But, what about the copper penny that's a little tarnished or been around a little while that you haven't looked at? Like old restaurants need love too.
Yes, and I would say that some places, I was just thinking about this the other day. I was thinking about the Bungalow Club, right? Andrew Kraft, he took over Craftsman, thing over there. And I was thinking about it in terms of like, I've watched him sort of like get through it and really churn through it. And I think that it has that beautiful patina right now that is just sort of charmed. And he's got his following and they're more at ease and you feel that because they have their little following. I don't think I can do that. I think he has to do that, right?
Yeah. Oh, it's a very individual
thing. The power
thing.
of us is not in awarding. But it's when he gets there, and I guess spoiler alert, he's part of the MSP 50 and he's not brand new because it has taken him that time to get there. Yeah. And sometimes I get people like, well, you looked over us again this year. And I'm like, well, you've only been open 2 years. And I feel like, we gave you all this press when you were opening and it was wonderful and you're doing good. But like, let's wait until like when you get to that good spot that people love you, that people will fight for you, that you're not on my list. I'm not kidding. I took Manny's off just to roll through some other steak places. And wow, did I hear about it. Like everyone's like, well, the list means nothing because Manny's isn't on it. And I'm like, that's wonderful. I love that you just advocated for them like that. Like that's personal and that's huge.
So I know that Eater doesn't really navigate these Minnesota waters anymore, but previously and when I go to other cities, the Eater 38 is something actually that I always refer to.
Resource.
It's a quick, valuable resource, and Joy on her way out kicked a couple of the Niver's restaurants off the list, just one. It was no big deal, and I was like, damn it, we were on this thing for years, and I am like. I was kind of used to my soft little cushiony spot on the Eater 38. Guess what, Niver? I don't deserve it. I have to continue to earn it. I have to continue to So it's not just about giving attention. It's also about continuing to earn the attention and putting it out there and finding a new way for yourself. Yeah. And I'm doing a podcast now.
Yeah.
Stuff. Anything to to just enrich all of this. To be able to chat with you about this is fantastic.
Well, this is good. By the way. Oh, I'm having a great time. But I do think, and I was thinking about Butcher and the Boar specifically because I took them off a list and I took them off the 50. And this was before, obviously this was, not in the Jack era, but in the era right before it closed. And I got a call to say, hey, can you come in and can you come over so we can, have a chat? And I didn't know what it was about. I was like, oh yeah. So I went over and it was Kevin Fraley, who I've known forever, obviously. And he was like, we're just wondering why we're not on the list. I'm like, oh, I didn't know that's what we were talking about. I didn't know what this was.
People are dying to be rated, Steph. Yeah. This is what I'm saying. We want to be rated.
And I was like, wow, okay, well, because I can't get into your beer garden. I mean, mazel that you're so busy that I can't get in. But I can't actually rate you when every time I try to come over, you have a private party. I'm like, and you don't let me know online that I'm not going to be able to get in. I go, you frustrated me too many times. And if I'm the guest, I didn't call you. I didn't try to get in props. I don't sneak in. But just as a guest, I tried to get in 3 times. And all those times I was flouted. And not for any reason other than you just didn't let everybody know, And so I was like, you just have to rethink about some stuff. It's not that you're bad. It's not that but you are frustrating to people. So
Stephanie, now that you're saying this, I'm just wondering if there's anything you'd like to tell me about my, if you'd, like to remind me of my position and anything that I may have.
Do you want me to rate
wronged you? Yes.
I know you seriously want me to rate you.
On a scale of 1 to 2.
A 1 to 2, I would give you the 1.
From the top of the heap.
Yeah.
The number 1 rating.
I like it.
I was really upset kind of too about James Beard.
Yeah, can we talk about that?
Oh, why can't we?
Oh, why not?
Let's fucking talk about
James
Beard. I love
that
Beard.
topic.
It was a hump. James Beard really had a hump with adding diversity to what it was doing.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But also, I'm not sure that they handled it very well. And I feel like I don't know what happened. I want that award, but I don't. It's so friggin' political.
It's always been political. And that's the weird part is I think that's one of those things where it was kind of political. I always felt it was political from the get-go, right? I mean, I felt that I understand that it's the pinnacle for a lot of people. And I don't blame anybody for wanting it. I've had, chats with Jorge about it a lot because I know that he really wants one and he's very open about it. And I don't think ambition is wrong. And I think when you say you want to be graded and ranked, I mean, that's the number one, that's the ranking, right? Of all rankings of our industry. We believe that is the number one way that shows that we've achieved, right? But I think it's always been political just because of the way that it works. And I don't think, and I'll be totally forthright, I've been a judge for 2 seasons. 2 years I was allowed to be a judge. And that was, I don't even remember when it was, but then I got yanked. And I didn't, because Rick Nelson used to be like the hub. He used to be for our region. He used to sort of be the coordinator, and he brought me on for 2 years. But then they pulled the hub to Kansas City. So then that person picked their people. So there you go. It's who's getting picked to have opinions, and how are those opinions really being weighed, and who behind the scenes has more weight than others. And that's the truth, where you can say someone might win an award after being open for 2 months, yet they would have had to pick that award in like the first 30 days of that person's restaurant. And are you telling me that person is like that makes a perfect restaurant? I don't think we've ever seen that anywhere.
No.
So I have a hard time with that idea, that there is a political side to it. It has just been political in different ways.
Was it El Pollo Loco that put the full page ad in the New York Times and said, hey, you need to consider these Latin chefs.
Yeah.
You have to consider
all
this. You guys have overlooked this entire segment.
Yes. And folks. The fact of the way, and I hate to keep bringing it back to like me and my MSP 50, but that was something that when I think about awards and I think about rankings and recognition, I, immediately when I took it over from the former, I said, you know what? We can't just do white tablecloths. It's not just about best restaurants and here's all the white tablecloth spots. That's not it. That's not how people eat. People eat every day, and we eat differently every day, and that's what this should reflect. Yes, we should have the tablecloth spots, and yes, we should have the people who are cutting edge and innovative food and stuff, but we also need to have, where do you go for lunch and breakfast, and where do you go for when you're really you need to be consoled by a burrito, for God's sakes. Those are as important.
It's a great soup town.
Oh my God. And
it's a great soup town.
And why don't we celebrate that kind of eating either? And I think that's been the breakdown that I've most enjoyed, is watching that happen. But along with that, then comes the diversity piece of this, because fine dining has been sort of kept into a little, white bubble. And so everybody else has been doing their other thing down here. And it took a while for us to for the organizations to notice and to realize. And so when they bring in a pizza spot, when Ann Kim's pizza spot gets, recognition, and some people are like, what, a pizza spot? You're like, by the way, fuck you. How often do you eat pizza versus how often do you eat foie gras? Honestly. And why shouldn't that be celebrated? Yeah. So I think that but I do agree with you that they've kind of bumbled throughout the whole thing, because they're just internally, they had to break down that political system that existed in the shadow that none of us knew about. Yeah. And they can't really talk about it, I think, because it'll destroy everything. And so I think they've been dismantling it from within slowly and surely. And that's why they had to skip a year. And so we're coming into this year and we'll see. I mean, submissions are due.
So I'd like you to nominate me this year.
Okay, I will.
Restaurateur of the Year. Yeah. I've been doing this for over 5 years, Steph, pretty consistently. Yeah. I think I've helped change little parts of our city and given you an opportunity to vote for the best restaurateur. You can do it today. You can get online and you can nominate me.
Yeah.
But I really say that because you don't need to nominate me. I would love the award too, but that's not it. I have to be very comfortable with myself and how I feel like I'm achieving things on a daily basis, and not wait for somebody to tell me. But it's really nice to get that.
It's this thing, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Because you get rewarded by your people. You get rewarded by your diners and
my employees.
Your employees, right? And that makes
they fill me up. They fill me up.
Yeah.
They're my heroes.
Right.
Especially now, more than ever.
Yeah.
But.
So
I'm going to say this.
Okay.
I'm going to say this. If you want to, I don't know if the word is democratize the James Beard Awards, you need to nominate somebody.
Yeah.
You need to go and put somebody's name in the hat.
Do it.
And I think then maybe your voice is going to come through a little bit louder. Yeah. Get your people around your people and go nominate some folks that you think are worthy.
Yeah.
Hey, I think Jorge is worthy of it.
Yeah.
I think he's really, really good. I think that pursuit, the idea, the passion, the fire that you can see is alone kind of part of what, you can see somebody desiring something and that they're pushing for it.
Right.
And that's cool.
I do too. And the thing I always feel bad for is when it's, the system sort of works as it has in the past, unfortunately, and reverted to kind in the way that it has and sort of just does the same thing it's always been doing. And then it's so hard to see like local people get so heartbroken by it or try all to game the system, and then come back at it and be like, that didn't work. And then now I've wasted all this time. And I sort of feel like that to me, I don't understand as a person, just as a person, that to put all that effort into one small maybe. Like I'm not spending all my money on the lottery tickets. You know what I mean?
I am.
I know.
I'm a restaurateur. That is my fucking retirement plan. Are you kidding me? That's how I'm going to retire.
Scratch. Woo.
I had to think of all those numbers in a row.
I know. Right.
What are the winning numbers?
Yeah. Pull tabs.
But, in lottery and in life, we're all taking chances. We don't know what the end results are going to be. And sometimes you have the winning numbers and sometimes you don't have the winning numbers.
No. And sometimes you get like $5, and sometimes you win $1,000 on a pull tab.
You get a taste. But I think mostly, Stephanie, I just, not to blow it up again, but, I just really appreciate your voice and how you give it to us. And I know that you're thoughtful when you provide feedback and that you care about it. Your intent is always good, and thank you for that. And I think that's really, really cool.
Thanks.
I have read a couple of different articles lately. One by a person that you and I have discussed before. And I don't know that I think we mutually agree that we don't love this person. Mm-hmm. But I read what they wrote about a restaurant that a friend of mine owns. And it was the best restaurant review I've seen in some time, addressing service, addressing conceptual ideas, addressing execution. And I was like, oh boy, that was good. And it's nice to see Rake, and it's nice to see Heavy Table, putting it out there, trying to give us some alts content and mixing it up a little bit. I love where you're coming from. I love your magazine. I love Dara. She, also very cool. But we need some other voices too to kind of balance out where we're coming from, what the end result is here, and getting multiple opinions on things.
I agree. And I will say that I'll just let you know, I don't know if you really know that I'm super competitive, but I am. And I'm just competitive. And I know you and I share this thing where it's like, there's a love-hate thing to say. Like, I'm so happy you're doing well, person over there, but God damn it, how come I didn't have that? Yeah. Like, why didn't I get that story? And why didn't we put that out?
Yeah.
And so, but I love that. And I love the fact that we have that ability and that it's not, I can't do all the heavy lifting. I can't be the only food writer in town, right? No. So then I wouldn't want to be, is my point. And so having people like, Racket coming up and doing the light rail boozy bar thing. Yeah, you call it the rake.
The rake.
Right?
Oh,
Rake was like
racket.
Me way back then. Oh my God.
I meant the racket.
The racket. But having them do that, is doing this light rail, booze crawl thing. I was like, that is brilliant. I sent them a note, and I'm a supporter, and I sent them a note saying this was fucking great.
Yes.
And M sent me back thanks and everything else. And I know what we all have a place, right? I mean, the people who they're talking to, we do all share. I believe that we all share like about 3,000 hardcore foodies, right? There's 3,000 hardcore people who read us all. Who maybe 3 to 5 now, who just read every little thing of food that you can get. And then you have that next sector, and you have that like maybe 20,000 people who are or maybe 15 or 10, but are like, who are interested and who keep up on things, but don't necessarily, but maybe they pick one or they pick the other and they dabble in the others. And then you have the rest of the Twin Cities metro area who are just looking for a good place to get a burger, and they'll tell you that they love eating out and they love restaurants. But then you say, have you been to St. Dinette? No. Is that new? And you're like, okay, and so you have this like thing where, and by the way, we speak to all of them, right? We do speak to all of those, the whole sectors. And so we're trying to, but for me, like Racket has a very interesting chunk of that. Heavy Table has a very specific chunk of that. And, everybody else is kind of like maybe you're an eater, maybe you want to, or maybe you don't even read anything. You just do podcasts and so, or you just only do newsletters and only Substacks. It's all out there. Like if we can all continue to help each other rise, then that's better. So as competitive as I am, I'm still learning how to be gracious like that and not be like snippy and being like,
It's hard. I think that's really the whole thing is, like I say, there's a way to say everything and you should say something, but we definitely need to handle each other with grace.
Yeah.
It's kind of interesting, one other weird thing I used to say a lot was, when somebody would give me feedback, I'm like, that's great. I can't wait to come to your work where you are and
give you the
same feedback in the same format that you gave it to me. Right. Where is it that you work?
Yeah.
Go ahead and tell me. I shall be over.
I'll meet you. I'll bring the coffee.
But there is a graciousness that, we all have to kind of use with each other and find the words to say in the appropriate way. Hey, maybe this could help you, or if it doesn't, I understand, but this is the feeling I was left with. And I've always enjoyed your work so much. And it surprised me that I don't know how it is that you say it, but there's a grace we should all consider with dealing with each other. And also don't stop giving feedback, but
but also be kind. But also I would say, make sure that your feedback and that anything given online or through social media is actually yours and not just because you saw somebody else get pissed and then jumped on that bandwagon, because that's to me the mob mentality that has kind of grown in. And I mean, I'm not going to go into cancel culture because I think there's a couple different ways that you can really approach that term. And I mean, there are people who definitely deserve it, but then there are people who just get caught under a mob's role. And I don't necessarily think that's, trust me, there are definitely differences between those things. But yet what I see is people jumping on and wanting to. I will tell you that when I am mentoring new writers, we have interns who come in and they want to write things, and I say, okay, well, how about if you write about this, and like, let's talk about how you approach this. What's your hook? What's your bend? And almost invariably, they want to take a place down, or they want to critique it, and they think by critiquing you have to call it bad. And I'm like, so you're just trying to set yourself up as knowledgeable, because if you say it's great, everyone goes, oh, it's great. But if you're going to do that, you have to stand behind it. You have to tell me why it's bad, or like what was wrong. You can't just say, oh, they just didn't do it. Why didn't they do it? How didn't they do it? And so I think the hard part is in the social media sphere, we get people who don't provide the context. And so there's no context to it. It's just feeling. And that to me is the crux of good feedback, is feeling and context. Yeah. And that's why I have a t-shirt that says context fucking matters. Because
it does matter.
It does. And it also matters to me. Are you someone who, there's a newsletter that comes out and there's a girl who's like reviewing food or whatever, and she's like, her review, and I'm like, who is this person? We don't know anything about her. I don't know, does she eat like Culver's every day? And if she does, that's fine. But I just need to know that when she's judging another burger and saying this is the worst thing I've ever tasted. I need the context of that. Yeah. And that's where Yelp fails too, because we don't know who you are.
At all.
And so why,
I'm an elite Yelper. Yeah. I'm not.
But I think, and that's actually why I think it works. People listen, they follow me because they know I have had this long, and same with Rick Nelson. You have a long track record of how you can easily see how I eat. You can easily see what I like and what I don't prefer. And then you kind of either track with me or you don't identify with me and you move on and you find someone else.
Somebody else you're getting your info
and
from.
That's fine. That's fine. I don't need everyone I don't need to be a kingmaker. I don't need to be the person who says, this place is amazing for everyone and it is perfect. like I said, perfection, it's not real. And so it's perfect for me in this moment. But if I'm going to come with like a group of my girl pals, if L2 is going out for drinks, we're not going to go to Piccolo because we're too loud for that space. So don't tell me it's the greatest restaurant. It is the greatest restaurant, or it was. But like I can't go there with this situation.
Yeah.
So context.
Yep.
If we can just get to feedback and context within that, I'm with you,
Yep.
100%.
Yeah. The spirit of folks, you know, I always want to believe. I always want to believe in the good spirit of folks, you know. And so I'm going to continue to believe in the good spirit of folks. And in the way that I speak and the way that I, you know, relate and tell people how I feel about them. It's often in the moment. I don't let things linger, and I try to be gentle. And sometimes feedback has to be done in private, and sometimes you have to harness the moment and take it and make it a teachable moment, which doesn't feel like feedback. But, you know, there's a lot of ways around, you know, giving people help to progress and how you see that, and giving them the step ladder. And then with feedback, it can't always be feedback. It's got to be, you know, balance of items so that people can actually listen to you.
Right. Because otherwise, what are you doing?
What are you doing?
You're just shouting at the moon.
I like listening to you.
Well,
and this has been lovely.
Is it good?
I think so.
I have had fun. This is good. I always love chatting with you. You and I could probably talk for like 6 hours.
Absolutely. And I would do anything for you too. Like if you ever needed me for anything, Steph, I'm always here for you.
Good. Well, I use you as a source a lot.
I have opinions. I do.
You do, and that's the thing is you're free, and that's that feedback, that form of feedback. You're just sharing your opinion, whether it's about one thing or another. I think a lot of people are scared to do that. You know, and rightly so. If they're not ready to stand behind it, then they shouldn't say things out. You know, because people will come at you no matter what.
Yeah.
They send you messages in the middle of the night, and tell you that you should be writing about Hardee's, and so that's kind of fun.
The curd burger.
Yeah. The Culvers, the Curder Burger. Everyone got played with that.
They did get played. All right, you.
Okay.
Well, thank you, Stephanie March.
Well, thank you, Tim Niver.
And
I'm pretty honored to be the first.
Really?
I'm pretty honored to
You're
be
honored? I'm honored.
The Niver Niver Land. Seriously. Number one girl.
The number one girl, episode 1 of Niver Niver Land.
Yeah.
Thank you, Stephanie March.
Thank you.
Have a great day.
You too.